Bonjour Jacob NORDANGÅRD, c'est incroyable quand on lit votre ouvrage, Les Rockefeller, Maîtres du jeu, à quel point on réalise la puissance d'une famille sur le monde. Comment peut-on expliquer qu'une seule famille ait acquis tant de pouvoir dans les affaires du monde? Comment tout cela en fait a-t-il commencé?
Yeah, it began early with John D. Rockefeller, of course, and I mean this is a story that has been told many times, but acquired almost a monopoly on oil in United States and also to a big degree in the world in the late 19th century and early 20th century.
On perçoit qu'ils investissent dans le pétrole, mais très vite, ça aboutit à toucher un peu à tout, notamment la santé. Et vous dites dans votre livre que ça aboutit à ce que les traitements médicaux alternatifs soient marginalisés ou proscrits et remplacés par l'industrie pharmaceutique naissante avec des composés chimiques brevetables, souvent fabriqués à partir de dérivés du pétrole.
John D. Rockefeller wanted to expand his markets with products that was derived from the petroleum industry, and they released this Flexner report, and this was together with Carnegie's, and to essentially more or less ban everything that wasn't from their own, they couldn't make profit on, more or less.
On voit qu'ils investissent aussi de l'argent dans l'éducation sexuelle, ce qui aurait une influence même aujourd'hui en Europe. Mais comment peut-on expliquer que les Rockefeller, qui sont des manias du pétrole, commencent à s'intéresser à la question climatique? Est-ce que cela signifie-t-il parallèlement un désinvestissement dans l'or noir?
Well, this was something that really intrigued me during my PhD studies, to find out that this family and their foundations had been so involved in setting up climate change policy, climate change research from the 50s and onwards. And why did they do this? Yes, this is the question for my Rockefeller book, and this had to do with especially a report that they released in late 1950s from the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, called the Special Studies Project. And this report, they stated in this that they wanted to achieve a new world order for the world, more or less a better management system. And they identified some kind of global problems that would help them to achieve this, because they said that if the world is going to unite, global problems is needed for this, for the purpose. And they identified first global health, and the second was oceanography and meteorology. And that from that time onwards, they started to give a lot of money into climate research that talked about the influence of carbon dioxide on the climate, and but they also other research that talked about the influence of humans, for example, releasing aerosols in the atmosphere. Everything had to do with human impact, and they said that because climate, it's cross borders. It's not a problem that any nation can solve alone. So we have to have this international cooperation, and that has always been a thing with the Rockefeller family and the organizations that they have been members of and influenced and or founded, like the Council on Foreign Relations, very, very much into creating global governance structures. So that's one of the reasons for this that I could found out during the studies to his book.
Donc, est-ce qu'on peut dire que l'intérêt des Rockefeller pour le climat est un prétexte pour créer un nouvel ordre mondial?
It's one of but it's more complex than that. It's not just to create the global governance structure. We have a lot of other things that is involved in this, and that's one of the big questions and issues that the Rockefeller Foundation were involved with, and especially John D. Rockefeller III, one of the Rockefeller brothers. It was population, the issue of population and population control, and concerning population growth and how this would create problems, rise in population and too little resources. It was this Malthusian view. So they also had, we have to have the governance and also the management of the people of the planet, and in order to create a balanced system. So that's a big thing with and as I mentioned in the book and write about, a lot of these people that were involved in early climate change research were also connected to the eugenicists at the time. Roger Revelle, for example, that was considered as the grandfather of the global warming theory in the 50s.
La théorie du réchauffement climatique anthropique a été pensée dès la fin des années 1800, mais c'est seulement véritablement après la Seconde Guerre mondiale qu'ils commencent à s'y intéresser. Est-ce que c'est parce qu'ils prennent peur, ils se disent que leur modèle ne va pas tenir si la population continue à augmenter? Est-ce qu'on peut dire qu'il y a une volonté eugéniste derrière ce projet des Rockefeller?
Yes, I would say that they consider that we need a population that is manageable, and in the future system, they don't need that many people anymore that we have, and then if you go back to the 50s, it's like we didn't have that much people on the planet at the time, but then we started to became concerned about this. So their plans haven't succeeded yet, if you see it in human numbers, because now we are like 7 billion. And at that time, I think we were like 3 billion or something like. But we see in this in the future, as I say, a technocratic system, and that they want to have. It's more like you have to, like in the eugenist view, that people shouldn't be allowed to have children without approval of the state, and almost like, and that's this is thing that is the World Future Society has written a lot about, especially during the 70s and 80s, and we also find these views like, for example, David Brower and Paul Ehrlich. So it's not like they want to get rid of everyone, but they want to secure and get the best people to populate the earth, the best people in their view.
Ouais. D'ailleurs, est-ce que les gens savent qu'il y a un lien entre les Rockefeller, si je ne me trompe pas, et la politique de l'enfant unique en Chine?
Yes, very much so. The thing with the Rockefellers is that they had very, very early, during the founding of the Rockefeller Foundation, they set up operations in China. And of course, it had also had to do with petroleum and selling oil to the Chinese at that time. And they were the ones after the communist overtake of China. They had to close down their operations, but they were the first that opened up. It's very much a Rockefeller initiative with China becoming this new industrial engine for the world, with David Rockefeller going to China with and Kissinger and Nixon, of course. And the Chinese, they opened up a bank account in Chase Manhattan Bank at the time. And so they, in order to make business with the Chinese, it was like now China can also become a testing ground for these ideas with one-child policy and so on, very much from the world of ideas from the Club of Rome. Yeah.
J'insiste, mais quand on sait que Julian Huxley, le frère de l'écrivain Aldous Huxley, a été président de la Société britannique d'eugénisme et de la Société britannique humaniste, qu'il est l'inventeur du terme transhumaniste, quand on sait que John D. Rockefeller Jr. était défenseur de l'eugénisme, est-ce qu'on peut dire qu'il y a un projet véritablement eugéniste derrière la politique des Rockefeller?
Yes, absolutely. It's and it's very connected to. We find these interesting people involved, and the Rockefellers, the Rockefeller Foundation, and the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. They had very tight connections with the British elite, the Huxleys, and so on. They set up. They were involved in eugenics together with environmentalism. That's very, very connected from the beginning, and the setup of the International Union of Conservation of Nature. It has a lot to do with the eugenist ideas that we have to manage people in order not to destroy the environment. So the Rockefellers has been involved since then, and they are very, very proud of this as well. And we find them also in the WWF and a zillion other organizations with this eugenist roots, of course.
Mm-hmm. Ouais, on va voir après à quel point ils ont investi dans tous les domaines, mais paradoxalement, en faisant semblant de se désinvestir des combustibles fossiles lancés à grand renfort de publicité, ils vont se lier avec des activistes contre le néolibéralisme et la mondialisation, comme dans 350.org, avec des figures comme Naomi Klein. Ça paraît assez paradoxal, mais on pourrait dire ils mangent à tous les râteliers.
The strategy is to control both sides. It's control of dichotomy. You have to, if you, because they have done this. They had the Trilateral Commission with the aim to globalize the world, and a lot of neoliberal policies and all the things with big business moving to low-cost countries and essentially taking over the world. We have a reaction to this, of course, and we had the anti-globalization movement, and because we know it always will come a reaction, and you have to control that reaction and control it so that these organizations and people work for you in the end. It's the Hegelian strategy with with making a synthesis of these opposing sides, and that's what we have been witnessing during especially the early 21st century, with the anti-globalization movement has transformed into kind of an alter globalization movement instead. Yeah, if we get our our concerns in this, if we get the right regulations, they suddenly support this big project. And yeah.
C'est super important ce que vous dites par rapport au contrôle de la dichotomie. Est-ce que ça veut dire qu'en fait, ils contrôlent tous les narratifs, mais qu'en fin de compte, il n'y en a qu'un seul, et que ça rend totalement superflu la différence entre la droite et la gauche?
I don't know if we can. Is there a real difference? I mean, not what way they are in how their thinking is. It's just how do we get to the point? How do we get to the system or society that we want to achieve? Well, we have left and we have right, and these are the boots marching towards this point all the time. And of course, it's always people that are understand this and are outside this, and trying to be real critics of this. But often we have seen with alternative media has been become part of it's very easy to go into the left or right part of this, and it's hard to stay out. So the real opposition, it's very isolated, and very few people that actually really grasp this, I would say.
Au départ, les gens ne s'intéressaient pas du tout au changement climatique, après la Seconde Guerre mondiale. Ils ont donc d'abord persuadé les élites du réchauffement climatique pour que ça devienne une réflexion politique des décennies plus tard, avec même maintenant des jeunes qui auraient des éco-anxiétés.
Yes, they are very much responsible for this, and I was kind of surprised of this. I was once a part of the Green Party in Sweden, and an environmentalist, and believed in these narratives and stories, of course, and was very concerned. But then I found out during especially my PhD studies, going back to the roots, and then finding that okay, they have been funding these organizations, and like Free50.org and Greenpeace, and all these have got money from them, and very early on, and so I find it, and one thing is also that a lot of the environmental concern was before kind of an upper class thing. It in Britain and the United States and Germany, they build the national parks and so on, and this was transformed during the 60s and 70s, so that so that the activists took over. But it was essentially, we know the World Wildlife Fund. It was an elite project, and this elite project, they needed activism. They needed youth to promote this. They needed radical people to promote these ideas, and out of that came Greenpeace.
Okay. Oui, donc c'est assez désespérant, parce qu'on voit que, bon, là vous dites qu'ils ont tout vient d'en haut, même la révolution de 68, mais ils ont tout financé. Ils ont tout financé, le GIEC aussi, l'Agence américaine de protection de l'environnement, tout était en fin de compte financé. On ne trouve pas un endroit où les Rockefeller ne sont pas présents.
You know, do we have a country in the world that's not dependent on oil?
Yes.
The whole world is dependent on a system that they already have built. They made us dependent on this, and from very early on, they built this network and their own intelligence agency, and that has became very connected to the other intelligence agencies, and so trying to spread the influence all over the world in a big net, and later with the technological revolution, of course, we have all of the that is we can see now with the new oil, the data from communication, internet, and so on.
À ce titre, ici, est-ce qu'on peut dire que la fondation Rockefeller a eu un rôle essentiel dans la modernisation agricole et dans la révolution verte, celle qu'on appelle la révolution verte de la Seconde Guerre mondiale, qui a donné lieu au remplacement des méthodes agricoles traditionnelles par des méthodes industrielles, rendant l'agriculture dépendante des produits pétroliers et des engrais et pesticides synthétiques, générant d'énormes profits comme pour les multinationales BASF, Bayer, Monsanto, etc.
Yes, that's very well known with the Green Revolution. And this came out of the Rockefeller Foundation. And they founded a couple of organizations with this in mind. And they really revolutionized and motorized the whole agriculture sector. And of course, this became very profitable for what became big agro. Yeah.
La conférence de Stockholm qui lance le développement durable était aussi un projet des élites et notamment des Rockefeller.
I've been following this very or researching this very much. Just the Stockholm conference. I mean, it's in my home country as well, and that it is mentioned a lot, especially if you doing environmental studies in Sweden. The prominence of this meeting and setting up the environmental agenda, and the Rockefellers were Rockefeller Foundation were very involved. They had actually one of their men was leading the conference, Maurice Strong, very well known. Also was he was around for 20 or 30 more years with the Rio conference in 92 and the Sustainable Development Paradigm and the Brundtland Commission in the 80s. The secretariat was paid for by the Rockefeller Foundation. We also find a lot of other people in the board, for example, that worked with Strong and raising the opinion for this meeting in the developing world, connected to the Rockefeller network, and also we have one very important institute called the Aspen Institute that was more or less responsible for the agenda at Stockholm conference, and it was funded by Rockefeller Foundation, Rockefeller Brothers Fund, and these other foundations were connected to this network, essentially the Council on Foreign Relations in New York, and with this in mind to use the environment to more or less force the world into a direction with management of resources. That's what it's all about, essentially.
Alors aujourd'hui, on nous parle sans cesse de la capture du CO2. On voit que les partisans de la théorie du dioxyde de carbone entretenaient des liens très étroits entre eux et que tous étaient plus ou moins liés au réseau Rockefeller aussi. Ce CO2 qui est tellement important aujourd'hui, sans les Rockefeller peut-être.
Yeah, should I continue with this or explain it. Well, this started in the 50s, and we have I mentioned before Roger Revelle. He was a friend of the Rockefellers, or he was a friend with a guy called Dkript. Dkript was the head of National Academy of Sciences, very, very prominent in academia in the United States, and had a huge influence on the research agenda at that time. So they were, and he was on the board of Rockefeller Brothers Fund and Rockefeller Foundation at the same time. And Revelle was also got funding from the military through the Office of Naval Research in the United States. And so that's one part of it. Revelle was at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography in California, but we also had connections with Stockholm through Swedish meteorologist called Carl Gustav Rossby, and also been involved in the military in the United States because he was a Swedish and American citizen at the same time. And he had been raised in the Rockefeller network, their institutions, and together these, the Stockholm University with him and the Scripps in the United States were, it was the core. It started there with really investigating carbon dioxide influence on climate, but it had all it came very much from military research, and the military wanted to know what's happened with the climate if we drop an atomic bomb, and so they conducted research on trace gases in the atmosphere after the nuclear detonation, and Revelle was working with them and with money from the Rockefeller Foundation, and that's the start of it, because they found there is a lot of carbon dioxide left in the atmosphere, and so they got funding from other sources as well, government sources, and that's from there it evolved into becoming a big issue, and the Rockefellers were also involved with working behind the scenes with Lyndon Johnson, the president of the United States during the 60s, and he was the first president that actually discussed carbon dioxide and in that scale, and introduced it in big politics, and then they took this to the Stockholm Conference a few years later.
Le deuxième discours de Johnson, d'ailleurs, a été écrit par Rockefeller.
No, we don't know exactly, but we know that Stephen Udall was the speechwriter for Lyndon Johnson, and he had worked together with Lawrence Rockefeller, that was known as Mr. Environment, and so they worked very closely with getting this information in this speech, because what it comes from is Revelle's research group, and they had a so-called international conference in 1963, run by the Conservation Foundation, a Rockefeller organization, and it was the first conference talking about carbon dioxide influence on climate, and but we talk about an international conference. It was actually only 7 scientists at this conference, and they were from Scripps, Roger Revelle's group, and the Stockholm group, and also one other from the Ford Motor Company. Very strange mix, but that's and they said we have to have this watchdog for the climate. So that's the start of what became the speech for Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah. Et je sais qu'on se répète, mais c'est pour que les gens se rendent compte de l'importance de Rockefeller. Mais le club de Rome, qui est à l'origine de ce rapport Limit to Growth, avait aussi comme but la création d'une civilisation planétaire avec les Rockefeller derrière.
Yes, the Club of Rome was set up in 1968 with it was essentially global planners working with this issue and system theorists, people really thinking about the organization of the world. And they had the first meeting in Rome. That's the name, Club of Rome. And then they had a big, important planning event at the Bellagio Center at the Rockefeller Foundation. It was Rockefeller Foundation's conference facilities in Italy. And that's where it took off with the Club of Rome and their ideas. And out of this came the Limits to Growth report, talking about the need for this global management of the planet. And we also find people involved giving money to the Club of Rome in the beginning. We Gianni Anelli, the head of Fiat. Yes, and close friend to David Rockefeller. That he was the head of Chase Manhattan Bank at the time, and a lot of people involved in the Chase Manhattan Bank international counseling. They were very influential in the setup of these groups, and we find some people in the Club of Rome and some other people in the later Trilateral Commission.
Et ça a marché, puisque la plupart des écolos et des décroissants de l'époque ont brandi le rapport du Club de Rome sans arrêt. On en a entendu parler partout.
Yes, very much so. I know, for example, that the Limits to Growth report, I knew it. So I mean, very interested in environmental issues, and during my studies at the university in geography, it was pointed out that we read the Limits to Growth report. It was considered more or less like a Bible, and so it became important in the 70s, and I mean, it sold many million copies, and was translated to a lot of languages all over the world. So it had a huge impact, and a huge impact on the environmental movement, and as I said, yeah, essentially a Bible for the movement.
Et après l'écriture de votre livre, a posteriori, qu'est-ce que vous pensez maintenant du rapport du Club de Rome?
I mean, it's made to convince the world and politicians that we need to do something. And a lot of, I mean, it was very criticized at the time from economists that didn't find any, it wasn't built on evidence, it wasn't built on hard facts, it was built on models of the future. And that's one of the things that surprised me later with a lot of science, that it was actually based on modeling, not empiric evidence. So, and some of the things that were written and in this report, I know that the Club of Rome people, they think that, oh, we were correct. So we have released an update of this a couple of times. But the opponents, they say, no, we have actually, because they say this is based on Malthusian ideas, and that the population outstrips resources and so on, and this hasn't happened. We have still a prosperous world. We haven't had it hasn't happened what they actually claim would happen. But the report on the other side goes along into the future. It's like 2100 or something.
Et ces modèles justement ont été fondés, ont été pensés par notamment l'Institute for Advanced Study, proche des Rockefeller. Donc le Club de Rome se base base son rapport sur des modèles fondés par l'AIS, lui-même proche des Rockefeller. On tourne en rond, quoi.
Yeah, it is, and we find John von Neumann was he was the founding father of this climate modeling affair, and also predicted that climate change would eventually unite the world in the end. It would be a much more useful tool than anything before.
Donc, en quelques décennies, le développement durable deviendra une doctrine globale pour l'humanité basée sur la peur du changement climatique. Tout cela pour réaliser la vision d'un seul monde. Est-ce que vous pouvez en dire plus là-dessus, mais aussi sur l'importance de la peur dans cette idéologie du changement climatique?
Yeah, it's of course very essential. Using fear, it's very effective because it triggers emotions in people. It makes people not think for real and not search for the evidence. They just get scared, and we have seen this. I mean, and this is an old trick, of course. We have it has always been used in exercising power. To tell people that okay, the heavens will fall down over us, and I mean they used this the priesthood of the antiques. We talked about they had knowledge about how the sun and the equinox and all these phenomena. So they knew what would happen because they had knowledge, and they could use it against the population and say, oh, the sky has darkened. It's because of you. You have done wrong. And also, if you go into climate change, I mean, that was something that the church talked about in the 19th century as well.
Yeah, it's because of you. C'est très important parce que justement, s'instille progressivement dans la tête des gens que le problème, c'est l'homme comme cancer ou fléau de la planète, mais surtout pas les industries qui sont responsables et les Rockefeller.
Yes, we kind of get the blame. Of course, we have the activist groups that they have been funding, but I mean, we have the things with attacking ExxonMobil, their own company, and they found people to attack them, and also themselves attacking Exxon. But a lot of this is pointing at us and telling us that we as consumers are the bad ones. They give us the things to consume, and we pay for it. And when we have it, we say, oh, you bad people, why do you consume so much? So it's I think it's a kind of psychopathic thinking.
Oui, parce que psychopathique, paradoxal, ils veulent qu'on consomme et en même temps, ils nous disent que c'est pas bien.
Yeah.
Ils veulent nous rendre fous.
It's impossible to do the right thing.
Yes. Les pompiers pyromanes, en fait, ce sont des pompiers pyromanes, c'est ceux qui ont accéléré la concentration urbaine, parce que vous le montrez aussi à quel point les Rockefeller ont eu de l'importance dans l'urbanisation et même les formes que prenaient les villes. C'est eux qui ont accéléré la pollution, le consumérisme, qui se présentent désormais comme les grands sauveurs de l'humanité.
Yes, yes, because these people also, they have this mantra called crisis and opportunity. And so everything that they create, if it gets bad, you can get an opportunity of it. It's always this, and that's, I think it's the spirit also of John D. Rockefeller that said these things. But even if okay, it feels bad now, but we can actually win something out of it. And so it's always this, okay, we do a bad action, and this will create bad stuff, but someone have to clean up. And if we say that it's your fault, you will pay for it, but it will we will get the money to fix the problems that we ourselves have created. It's a very smart thing to operate business on.
Et est-ce que vous pensez que les décroissants et les écolos se sont fait avoir dans le jeu?
Yes, a lot of the youth, of course, the activists, they are manipulated. They don't know. It takes time to understand. I mean, I was a youth once as well, and I also was involved in environmental movement, and was very concerned. And it took time for me to understand. And that's the case with everyone in this. So of course they are. A lot of these people are manipulated, and because we see also what has happened. Has the environment got better? It's the more they have talked about sustainable development, the more we have had this grand scale technological society built. And it's like I remember in Sweden they talk about we have to have sustainable living, we have to consume less, and at the same time we built this big shopping malls outside the city, and that people had to drive to. It was the same time and the same people saying this. So it's never what happened in the end is something else than actually caring for the environment. And I think we can see it now with we're going to save the environment with digitization. That's...
Pour terminer, on a eu l'épisode Covid. Est-ce que vous pensez, puisqu'on sait que les Gates et Rockefeller se sont rencontrés, on a eu des rapports de Rockefeller sur avant comment préparer une pandémie. Vous avez écrit ce livre avant Covid-19. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez du lien entre Rockefeller et le Covid-19?
Yeah, it's very close. As I said, global health, they have been involved with the global health issue since they started essentially Rockefeller University, Rockefeller Institute of Medical Research. And during the Spanish flu, they were involved, and the setup of International Health Agency, the League of Nations, and also the WHO in 1948. They were around and funding a lot of this and all these ideas. And also, if you go into what happened during COVID, we have this very intriguing document issued by the Rockefeller Foundation in 2010 with the lockstep scenario. A document called Scenarios for Technology and Development, International Development, I think. And that it's just to follow what happened during the pandemic. It's just to read this report from 2010. It's essentially the same thing that happened, and they also describe this in other projects and scenario reports from like 2002 and earlier as well. So and for me, I also written another book called The Global Coup d'etat, and that follows all what happened during the COVID era. And I had just finished the Rockefeller book in Swedish at that time. And then this happened, and it was like, okay, I recognize this. This is the way they want to achieve this new the fourth industrial revolution and all these this technological shift. It's through this trigger, this pandemic, because we just ruled out all the technology that they had developed at that time.
On est impatient, évidemment. J'ai encore une question. Quand vous avez fait cette enquête qui est magistrale, est-ce que vous attendiez à ces résultats? Est-ce que, d'une certaine façon, un monde s'est un peu écroulé dans vos croyances?
I mean, you mean my personal
Yes.
view and
Knowledge.
Knowledge, and yeah, I have to change when I found out a lot of this. And then I started out with studying peak oil theory in 2004 as a geography student, and I eventually had the same feeling for how the power structures work in the world. Very early on, we were very critical and skeptic against power, but I always assumed that now I'm in the right team, the team that works for the good of humanity.
The truth.
And yes, and then found out that, oh shit, they have been hiding in this the same movement. So it really changed me at the time with how I viewed the world.
C'est pour réellement finir, c'est la seule façon de se battre contre eux, parce que quand on lit ça, c'est vraiment une pieuvre. C'est un pouvoir énorme. La seule façon de se battre contre eux, c'est de dire la vérité.
Yes, I think truth is the way, of course, and if we stick to it, we will win in the end, because truth is absolute. You cannot beat truth, and these people, they think they can buying everything, by controlling university education and media, they can decide what's true or not, but that's not the case. In the end, the truth will always win. That's my message. Yeah.
Mille merci, Jakob NORDANGÅRD. Mille merci, on peut le dire en suédois.
Tusen tack, Jakob.
Ce livre est essentiel, vraiment. On le conseille, on mettra les liens sur, évidemment, en dessous de l'interview. Ce livre est essentiel pour comprendre le monde dans lequel on est, même si ça risque de donner une petite claque dans le visage de certains qui croient encore qu'on était dans le pays des bisounours. Thank you very much, Jakob.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Et on attend impatiemment le prochain livre.
Oui.
We wait for your next book.
Yes. I have a couple of hours ready. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.